So, good morning to everyone who is following us today for our today's discussion on general elections in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm really glad to have you here all together today for this hopefully lively and informative discussion. But before I'm gonna share any further details on the discussion, I would like to pass the word to Gerhard Marchel, who is head of the department for European politics at the Karl-Renner-Institut, and Karl-Renner-Institut is one of our cooperation partners. So please, Gerhard, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Daniel. A warm welcome also from my side, from the Karl-Renner-Institut. It's a pleasure to have you here, the panelists, and of course our audience who is following us on Zoom and YouTube. This event so to say, a long tradition. It belongs to a well-established series of events that we have together with the Institute for the Danube region and Central Europe and the Politische Akademie of the ÖVP. In these events, we focus on the situation in the forefront of parliamentary elections in countries in Central, Eastern and Southeastern Europe. And I would say all three institutions, the IDM, the Politische Akademie and the Karl-Renner-Institut, have a special interest in the region, a special interest also in the Western Balkan countries. Let me bring an example. Our institute, the Karl-Renner-Institut, is the co-founder of an initiative that is called Young Generations for the New Balkans 2030. Towards alternative horizons. We founded this initiative together with the IIP, the International Institute for Peace, and the OIP. And this initiative sets the spotlight on youth, the progressive stances and hopes for the future. And young activists such as Samir Beheric, who is joining us today, are part of this initiative. And in the framework of this initiative, a few months ago, we were also in Bosnia and Herzegovina for talks with politicians, civil society activists, officials, experts, diplomats, etc. And what we heard and sensed was a high level of frustration in the country, frustration that is pushing quite many, above all young people, to emigration. Frustration with the ethno-political divide in the country, with the deadlock in the country, frustration with the political elite, with corruption, etc. But we also heard and what we also sensed is that there is a high potential in the country, that there are well-educated, motivated young people, young activists, and that there are also at least some politicians who really strive for change for the better in the country. Now, a few days ahead of the elections, the main question, at least for me, is if these elections will bring some change, if nationalist politicians will remain in power, or, as I hope, will be limited in their influence, and that the politicians who strive for change for the better have, will have at least minor victories, or could win in some areas. Other questions are, what is the election campaign about? What is the influence of the war in Ukraine, of the global actors, EU, Russia, etc.? These and many more questions will be touched upon by our panelists. A warm welcome and thank you to them from my side, and I really look forward to their analysis. I'd like to stress again that this event is a joint initiative by the three institutions, and I would like to thank the other two partners, the IDM, represented today by our moderator, by Daniel Martinek, and of course also thank you to Managing Director Sebastian Schäfer, Thank you also to the Political Academy of the ÖVP, Felix Buchner in particular. I think we always have a good cooperation. Now it's time to hand over back to you, Daniel. I wish you all a good discussion, and I'm looking forward to interesting insights. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gerhard, for your welcoming words, and good morning also from my side one more time. Many thanks to everyone who is joining us today and following our discussion on the general elections in Bosnia-Herzegovina, be it here in the Zoom webinar or watching us on the live stream on our IDM YouTube channel. As Gerhard already mentioned, my name is Daniel Martinek. I have the pleasure to be a research associate at IDM, Institute for the Danube Region and Central Europe. And I will guide you today through this online panel discussion, which is part, as it was already mentioned also by Gerhard, of our traditional event series organized jointly with the Karl-Renner-Institut and with the Political Academy of the Austrian People's Party. In the spring, we closely monitored and covered parliamentary elections in Serbia, Hungary, and Slovenia. It seems that the fall 2022 belongs to Southeastern Europe, when we will carefully observe the general elections in Bosnia-Herzegovina, but also the parliamentary elections in Bulgaria. But who knows, given the fragile political situation in some countries of the IDM region, I mean here Central, Eastern, Southeastern Europe, no one ever knows what another discussion we may organize before the end of the year. So thank you very much to both our cooperation partners for this excellent cooperation. And as it was already mentioned, the upcoming Sunday, the 2nd of October, is a big election day in Southeastern Europe, when the people of Bosnia-Herzegovina and Bulgaria go to the polls. Today we gathered to discuss the elections in this beautiful but socio-politically fragile, and if I may say also complex country. Today we take a look on the elections in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and for that I have the pleasure to welcome our distinguished guests and experts from the country. I would like to welcome Maja Gasal-Vražalica, the director of Academy for Women from Sarajevo. Maja, it's great to have you today with us. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure also and thank you for the invitation. And it's my pleasure to be a part of this discussion. And I think we will make it very good to give the audience the all needed information from Bosnia-Herzegovina in this pre-election time.
Thank you very much. I also have the pleasure to welcome Samir Beharic, who is youth activist and a research officer at the Balkan Forum. Samir, great to have you today as well.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing this timely event, and thank you very much for having me. It will be a pleasure to discuss with colleagues and the audience as well about what's awaiting us in the upcoming period.
Looking forward to it. And finally, we have Lilian Veselinovic, assistant professor at the School of Economics and Business at the University of Sarajevo. Lilian, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Daniel, for the invitation. And I'm really looking forward to share my perspective with the audience and also among us to discuss these topics that are very important for us.
Thank you very much. And before we jump directly to the discussion, I would like to ask Samir for providing us with a short and brief summary about the pre-election situation in the country, which we would use as a starting point for our discussion. But before I ask you, Samir, I would like to also remind some organizational issues to our audience. For those following us in a Zoom webinar or via YouTube live stream, we really encourage you to ask questions already during the discussion, be it here in the Zoom in a QA section or in the chat, or be it on the YouTube via the YouTube live stream in the chat directly on YouTube. These questions will be, of course, passed to me. please just always indicate which speaker you are actually addressing with the specific question. So thank you very much for that. And now, Samer, please, the virtual floor is yours for a brief summary on the pre-election situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will try to be brief and concise, offering a general setting of what's going on currently in Bosnia and Herzegovina. For the couple of past months, I would say Bosnia has entered a new phase. I would say Bosnia is currently at the crossroads politically, especially politically. We have been seeing an increased nationalism, not just coming from the political actors, but also coming from quote unquote ordinary people in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which is then of course used by politicians in order to steer their nationalism towards their own benefits at the polling stations in order to have as many votes as possible. And usually they are doing this, for different reasons. One is a genuine rise of nationalism, so genuine nationalism and push by certain actors in the country, and also I have to say outside of the country by external actors to influence the political processes in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and even in some cases to attempt to secede the country. Secondly, it is the lack of actual tangible results that they have delivered. It is the lack of prospect that we can discuss about when it comes to a future of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So they run into this part of spreading nationalism in order to get the votes. So what is currently happening in Bosnia and Herzegovina, that these elections
Samer, sorry, I think we lost connection.
every 2 years, if we add. Do you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think
could you maybe repeat the last two sentences? Thank you.
Yes. So what we are seeing currently now on political sphere is that Bosnia and Herzegovina is entering a key phase, and one might say that every election in Bosnia is a key elections, especially because in Bosnia and Herzegovina we have elections every 2 years if we add also local elections. So people of Bosnia and Bosnian public is in a constant state of electoral campaigns, be it on a state level election or on a local elections, especially because the topics and the nationalism that we are witnessing, is very similar regardless of which level we are choosing our politicians for. So currently, for those who are not aware, maybe just to give a brief overview of whom we are choosing, or whom we are voting, and for which level. As some of you might know, Bosnia and Herzegovina is one of those countries, or probably the only country in the world, with 3 presidents, or 3 members of presidency, of the state presidency, heads of state.
Not sure if it's just
we
on
will
my
be also
side,
choosing
but we lost you again.
No, Samir, there is interruption just from time to time.
Could you repeat the last sentence? Thank you.
Okay, I hope this will not keep repeating. It will be a pity. As I said, we are choosing now the presidency, 3 members of Bosnian presidency, a Bosniak, Croat, and a Serb, who will be representing first and foremost Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina and Republika Srpska. They will be chosen by the voters voting from those 2 entities. Secondly, we are also choosing MPs, members of state parliaments in Bosnia and Herzegovina, who are elected again by the voters in both entities of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Furthermore, as you might know, we have these 2 entities. One of the entities, the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, is divided into 10 cantons. So we have then basically these 10 additional administrative units within one of the 2 entities, where we are electing our members of assemblies within those very cantons. At the same time, we are also electing the members of the federal parliament, of the Parliament of the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, one of the two entities. And at the same time, the voters in the Republika Srpska entity will be voting for their MPs in the National Assembly of Republika Srpska. So they are on several levels. We will have hundreds of new officials being voted in to represent their constituency. When it comes to political parties on all levels, we do have old parties that have been participating in Bosnian political system since the end of the war. However, we also do have some new parties and new people who will be running for office. I personally would wish that we have even more people who have not been participating in political life, in political parties even before, because there is this tendency in the upcoming, in the last couple of years, that new parties come and emerge, not necessarily with new people, but they become established, they get established by old party members splitting from their former political parties and establishing a new political entities. So basically, in the upcoming years, we will be, in the upcoming mandate, for example, for the next 4 years, we will be seeing a, first and foremost, I would say, clash between those who want to see a civic, multi-ethnic, democratically oriented Bosnia and Herzegovina, who would become a member of the European Union as soon as possible, and those who are who have been working for the past 2 decades in creating political rifts, creating a country which currently does not deserve to join the EU as such, and creating a better future for our young people abroad instead of exactly in Bosnia and Herzegovina. But I know these are some of the topics that we will be discussing during the next a bit more than 1 hour. So I will be happy just to leave it so far at this point, and then to delve into discussion further on during the panel.
Many thanks, Samer, for this brief overview of the elections, and also the overview of actually elected representatives at the different levels of public administration of Bosnia and Herzegovina. It was already mentioned by Gerhard during his welcoming words, this kind of omnipresent frustration in Bosnia and Herzegovina, particularly if we look at youth or younger generation. He also mentioned this ongoing rise of nationalism and these tensions between these different ethnics of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And you mentioned during your overview this clash between these, and on one side, on the other side, the civic, multi-ethnic, democratic country which some of the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina would like to wish and are seeking for. And this brings me to the question, is there actually something unique about this year's elections? If you look at the previous elections, is this clash between these two sides is still there, but is there something which might develop in a further direction as it was the case 4 years ago? Is there something, if you analyze this year's per-election situation, something different from the year 2018? And I would like to address this question to Maya, please.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you also, Samir, for this briefing. What is different when we compare with previous, maybe last general elections in Bosnia and Herzegovina? In my point of view, this pre-election time, it started actually earlier than in previous years. And now we are actually in finish time, and I will not call it as a pre-election or campaign time. It's actually in Bosnia and Herzegovina like battlefield. We are fighting without weapons, with all nationalistic, national, ethnic rhetoric. We are more as a people and as a politicians more radical than in previous years. For example, yesterday in Bosnia and Herzegovina, or 2 days ago, major Bosniak party had some with their also candidates and also voters. They made some, let's say, statements about what will happen if the voters do not support SDA as a major Bosniak party in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And they made also a video about it and put it on all our portals that if you don't want and support SDA, we will not have a water, we will not have air, we will not have universities. Also, they said that we can expect a new war and new genocide in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And new genocide from Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's actually not, will not be done by the aggressors that we had in 90s here in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It will be made by their rival candidates, whoever they are. Maybe they are also from Bosniak people or other people in Bosnia and Herzegovina or ethnic groups in Bosnia and Herzegovina. For us who are actually pro voting, actually, that we should go and vote for anybody here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, because that is our right and that is democratic process. Sometimes I'm asking also myself, should I go to vote or not? When I compare it also in previous time, Bosniaks as an ethnic group in Bosnia and Herzegovina, they were in previous campaigns more unique, let's say, in this since 2018 and this 2022, we have now, we can say, 2 major Bosniak parties. And that is actually now the war between those major 2 Bosniaks party in Bosnia and Herzegovina, mostly in Canton Sarajevo, because here is everything, actually, administrative center, also the much more money than in other cantons or in entity of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And when we see what is different, it's since we have Dayton Agreement in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and what is also positive and good for us as voters, that 11 opposition parties in Bosnia and Herzegovina are supporting 1 Bosniak candidate for presidency member, as a member of presidency in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and he is coming from Social Democratic Party in Bosnia and Herzegovina. That is also a sign that the changes can be done in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We can also leave by the side our political orientation, who we are we liberal, conservative, social democrats, etc. And when we are talking about new people who are enjoying political parties, or they are splitting from one party to another, from election to elections, I would say it's not about that we that our key solution is the new generation of politicians in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but it's about the key is in more responsible politicians in Bosnia and Herzegovina. How do I explain it? It's like we have in Academy for Women since 2019, 3 generations of youth people in Bosnia and Herzegovina. 50% of them are political party members, and 50% of them are totally negative oriented to political life and political process, parties, etc. in Bosnia and Herzegovina. When I would made now the black screen of youth people who are talking about all these problems in Bosnia and Herzegovina that we have since 3 decades, majority of them are talking like party leaders, actually, that are not new generation politicians who will give us or will bring a new narrative in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And those who are not joining political parties, for me, that is a pool who can bring changes in Bosnia and Herzegovina. But the fact is that those youth people are oriented to leave Bosnia and Herzegovina than to fight for better constitution, better life, etc. in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And it's not only about us here, how we see Bosnia and Herzegovina, or this minority of us who are fighting for all people in Bosnia and Herzegovina, not only for ethnic groups. It's about also where is EU and EU agenda of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And in May this year, I attend a big conference in Berlin, where actually in that day the EU give a statement that Ukraine will enjoy EU, and the Bosnia and Herzegovina is on the list and should will have at least these 14 priorities to solve first. That then they will discuss about membership of Bosnia and Herzegovina. I asked all these ruling state representatives on this conference, what is actually the agenda of EU to Bosnia and Herzegovina. And for us, as not only as a youth, but also as activists, me in person, I didn't expect that I will ask myself what is EU today and where are the EU values that we had in previous time or in the past or in the period when EU was built. But with those zero agenda from EU to Bosnia and Herzegovina, where they don't care about states who are not EU member states, they are not caring about EU continent, and they didn't learn anything about war in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And we also have now new EU generation also in politics, in activists, process as activists, etc. They like to say it is after World War II, it's the new war in the continent of Europe. They forgot that Bosnia and Herzegovina, or they don't know that Bosnia and Herzegovina was also in war in 90s. And that showed me that, and I ask myself, do we have to have in Bosnia and Herzegovina a new war to be accepted as a candidate in European Union? And what is actually all about us and EU and Europe as a continent. So it's very complex to explain our audience. We are small, very complex country, 3.5 millions, and that is only now statistic. Now, when we would have a new statistic, they will show that we maybe have 1 million lost in EU states. And it's a question of what we as activists, as politicians, as a new generation will do. And when we have diplomatic meetings and everything, it's only talking about some kinds and perspectives how to change things in Bosnia and Herzegovina, or are we talking about how to be unique on the continent of Europe? And for me, as someone who decided to stay in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in a country where we have 156 registered political parties, where we lost the political orientation, why the people are splitting from one party to another. It's actually they are enjoying political party to have some privileges, to have some better life in Bosnia and Herzegovina, to have a job, because it's very difficult to live here and being not a political oriented or political party member in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Then you are nothing here. You are actually going from day to day and hoping that something will happen. But if you enjoy political party, the life in Bosnia and Herzegovina is much easier. And I can say it on my personal experience. And the EU agenda who is coming through embassies in Bosnia and Herzegovina, through international community, is actually, let's talk about sexy topics, not about important topics.
Thank you very much, Maya. You touched upon many issues actually, and as we can see, there is not only frustration about the fragmented political landscape in the country, and also really low level of trust in the government and in the public institutions from different obvious reasons. But you also touch upon the frustration on the European level, maybe the frustration with the European Union, that the European Union is not delivering what the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina might expect and wish for the Union to deliver. I hope that we will still have time to discuss this a little bit later. But now I would like to go to Lilian and ask you, Lilian, what is your perception of the youth and their perspectives on better life, their opinions on these clashes within the different ethnics and different people of Bosnia and Herzegovina? And Maya also mentioned this because, of course, every generation has a different interest groups, let's put it this way, or there exists, of course, opinion pluralism within each generation. That's understandable. But how would you understand that actually these young people are following this path of these party leaders, and then they are fine, or they follow this type of politics and this kind of approach in the politics?
Okay, thank you, Maya and Samir, for this introduction. Also, you mentioned at the beginning that we are a very complex country, and that is so true. And because of that complexity, I would just give a short introduction as well, and I'll answer your question. The problem is that we have so many parties that at the end, there has to be so many coalitions between these parties. In Republic of Srpska, that's one entity in Bosnia, we do have maybe 2 or 3 parties that are now very important, but in the federation, we have so many parties. But these parties are no new parties, and these elections are different compared to another before elections, because we have some extra parties, like the one that basically was made from the leading party, and also a social democratic party. In 4 years, they created another party. So it's very complex. However, when young people go to their websites, or when you watch all these faces on the campaign, etc., you don't see any message that is actually helping young people to say, okay, I'm going to vote for this person or not. It's all about, protecting your nation. Either you're from Bosnia, either you're Bosniaks, Serbs, or Croats. They're all saying, like, we are going to protect you, and no one knows what that means actually. How can you protect me? Yes, they do mention, like, we are going to stop young people from leaving this country. You can see in all campaign they're mentioning this, even though some politicians are mentioning that we should hire robots and artificial intelligence to replace young people. And this was actually comments at one meeting. However, if you're young people, you don't know much about elections, and then you see those faces, you can only vote based on your preference. Do you find someone beautiful or not, to be honest? Because the main messages are, let's keep our nation safe, I don't know, let's make the life better. And I also encourage young people, when they are going into these events, to ask politicians, how are you going to prevent young people from leaving this country to stay here? What are you going to do? What is your program? So I would really like to say that there is no program that you can actually read and see what these politicians are going to do. So that's one thing. But another thing is, I would say, our cultural heritage, let's say this way, because if you're a political party, most members are basically following orders from the top. That's my perception. Of course, maybe I could not generalize in this context. However, what I see is, it doesn't matter if you're young, old, female, male, this or that. If in a political party, you are probably going to follow this ideology in the party, which is, of course, making the election to some extent not useful. And then when you see there, I'm also talking about what young people are seeing on the Facebook, because Facebook is, okay, maybe Instagram more than Facebook, to be honest, but these social medias is basically so many false information, false content created to create some kind of deception. And when they present these ideas, for example, they're always saying not what are they going to do, but basically what are other parties doing wrong. And then if they do something, they're going to protect them from the other party. They are in the last few months, we could see how they actually created a story that even some events that are out of the control of politicians, they are basically said that it's because of these politicians. Let's say we did have this LGBTQ pride, and it happened in Sarajevo. However, because this kind of behavior is not widely accepted, another politician party wanted to say like, okay, look, they allow this, and it's they're trying to say like that someone did it, even though you do have formal requests for this event. Police is supposed to protect you. It is not in, the political parties are not maybe directly responsible for this event, but they're trying to say, or there is theater, for example, performance in the theater, and as a part of this performance, you can see someone, I don't know, I wasn't there to be honest, but someone was naked at that performance. So they say, look what these parties are allowing us to see. And are we going to educate young people to say this is okay, that people should, you should walk naked and such. So very, very bad political campaign, I would say. And young people cannot see any useful information to go to this election and vote. That's one perception. And in the context, I would just like to add this, what's different in this election from the previous ones is that we are making this nationalist story stronger every day. And some political parties, some leaders of political parties, they just don't have exit strategy right now, if you understand me. And they are, they started with a small referendum asking a simple question, and they pushed, this, and now there is no way you can say to your voters, look, I'm going to change my politics, I'm going to work more on these topics. So there's a problem. And before the elections, you can see many politicians are meeting with the leaders. So you could see that one politician from our country met with Putin, another met with Erdogan, then with Milanovic, just to show the strengths they have in these countries. Yeah, so basically this is, I hope I answer your question, but if you want, I can also elaborate a bit more.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lilian. Well, you mentioned no party is offering no exit strategy from this national tensions. So I do believe that you answered my question, and I can see that we are again heading in this regional and European perspective, but I would like to still stay within these domestic issues and ask Samir what we can observe again, that these ethnic conflicts and escalations are once again leading the debates before the elections. How do you perceive the election campaigns and the programs of the parties? Would you agree with Lilian about this hollowness or lack of political agenda the parties are offering? Does any party actually offer a feasible solution to these for decades lasting ethnic tensions within the population, or are we experiencing simple blaming and finger pointing on each other, as Lilian also mentioned?
Yeah, so I will try to build upon what Maya and Lilian already said. So I would say that when it comes to young people, but not only young people, the voters are voting not based on the values or not based on the program of the party, but mainly due to one very simple reason that has been following us since post-war Bosnia has become independent country. It is creating jobs. Those parties which have been in power for the past 2 decades, they possess a very pragmatic power, and this is to allocate and to give jobs to people who need jobs. And for those, to put it into perspective, the youth unemployment rate in Bosnia and Herzegovina is almost 50%, according to some statistics, even higher. The general unemployment rate is I mean in a similar range, depending from source to source. So those young people who go to vote, and I see many of my friends, from high school, from university, going to vote, and they are very open about that. They are going to vote, and they decided to run for office, not because they believe, and not because they believe they can make a change, not because they are so much invested in politics as such, but because they know if they place themselves on spot number 18 on an electoral list, that they know that in the upcoming, during the mandate, they will get some kind of a job because they are unemployed. And this is what the dominant nationalist parties are using for their own benefit as a leverage, to tell young people not only run on our list, but also you have to vote for us. Your family has to vote for us. Those who already got jobs from those very parties, they already need to vote for those parties, and not just only them, also their family members, their cousins, etc., etc. In some cases, those people need even to take a photo of their ballot to prove that they have voted for the party boss, that gave them a job. And we will find those people everywhere. They get jobs in public administration, in health sector, in education, you name it. When it comes to young people, I think we are too idealistic about young people, and we think about young people as being, being young is not a virtue, first and foremost. Young people are also nationalistically oriented. They are also corrupt. They also engage in nepotism. And I don't know, how do we expect for young people to be any different, for young politicians especially, to be any different from their political mothers and fathers, if those young people have been educated in schools that preach nationalism, that preach segregation. In some cases, it's not only preaching, they do it. In Yaita, in my hometown, I attended an ethnically segregated school, which exists even today, and these are the schools where young people attend classes in separate classrooms based on their ethnicity/religion. So if someone is a Bosniak, and living in the same neighborhood with Croats, with their Croat peer, as it was my case, I'm Bosniak for that matter, for example, and I would play soccer with my friend Dragan every morning here in Yaita, in this very neighborhood, In the afternoon, Dragan and I would go to school together, would walk to school together, to the same very school, to the same school building. Dragan would enter that school from the right side, I would enter it from the left side, and Dragan would attend classes in the first floor, I would attend classes on the second floor with my Bosniak, peers. He would go with their Croat peers. This kind of educational system is called two schools under one roof. It exists since early 2000s, and it is still in place today. 6 years ago, Bosniak and Croat nationalist politicians here in Yaita wanted to segregate those rare integrated high schools here in the city. Why? Because they see that ethnic segregation, nationalism, and education, is the best training ground for young nationalists who, after the school, would vote for nationalist parties. So, and based on that, we cannot really expect from young people to think critically, because the educational system in Bosnia and Herzegovina, at any level, they don't teach young people to think critically. They teach people what to think instead of how to think. And I think this is the biggest problem that we can see in the Bosnian educational system. Today, we already have politicians who have, gone through such kind of brainwashing, educational system in the country. In the Republika Srpska, we don't have two schools under one roof. We don't have ethnically segregated schools. We have one school, and it's Dodik's school. In that school, according to that curricula, war criminals, are hailed and honored as heroes. War crimes are celebrated, glorified, directly and indirectly. And we currently now do have young politicians who are already in office, who have gone through this kind of, educational system. And not only they are voting for nationalists, they are nationalists themselves. And some of them are already mayors in the Republika Srpska, and in that sense, I think we have a big task to deliver in the upcoming years, because I do really think that activists of today should become politicians of tomorrow, and it is those people who are activists in the civil sector, and also, as Maya said, those people who don't vote because they don't see opportunity, and they don't want to choose from two evils, the lesser evil, and I think we would need to push much more strongly in that direction towards having not just young people, but having offering something to voters which is beyond, we will protect you, we will, fight against someone who is, it is about producing fear. So it's not about protecting anyone from anything. It's producing fear in one direction. And at one point, people like, Serb nationalists who have been, advocating for secession, for the split of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and for that matter, to join Serbia, I wouldn't underestimate them, and I wouldn't say this is only, pre-election rhetoric. To a certain extent, it is, because that, will deliver some votes for them. But I would say there is a strong sentiment among the Serb nationalist political elite that they want to secede Bosnia and Herzegovina, to secede Republika Srpska and join that part of the country to Serbia. This should not be underestimated, as much as the Russian threat in Ukraine should have never been underestimated as such. And Dodik's rhetoric is not only inflammatory rhetoric, as some might say. He has engaged in direct actions in the parliament to disintegrate some of the state level institutions, to pull out of the state level institutions, such as the army, secret service, tax service, authority for pharmaceutical industry in the country. And I think these are some of the biggest problems that we as a society have to deal with, and especially this part of the society that's democratically liberal oriented towards Bosnia and Herzegovina moving forward, and not tapping in one spot for years.
Many thanks, Samer, for your answer. It's really sad and tragic to see, that the education system in Bosnia and Herzegovina is actually not improving or not supporting the youth in the way that they would leave the ethnic issues or the ethnicity behind and really treat each other in a respectful way. And at the same time, as you are mentioning, this country has these issues, but at the same time, we have also more extreme issues, as you mentioned, Dodik, and these separatist efforts and so on. And so this, of course, also doesn't contribute to the stability of the country. And it really shows how fragile the political system, or how political system can be in the country. But as I can see, the time is really running. So I would like to proceed also to some questions we already received from the audience. And one of them is from Klaus Prempers. He's asking, is Mr. Schmidt from the Office of High Representative improving the elections, or is he acting in complicated manner when he listed Croatians pledging for their own representation? We didn't actually mention the developments of the past months when it comes to the reform of the constitution, but also the election law. Mr. Pampers didn't specify who is addressing the question to, but maybe Maya, would you like to start answering this question? How do you perceive this issue?
Yeah, After Mr. Inzko, we received a new high representative in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and it's Mr. Schmidt. And I think after Inzko that we have somebody who is proactive, who is trying to have dialogues. Only where I see the problem that is he is staying on the same procedure and praxis like the representative before him, that he is talking not with, let's say, members of presidency, he's talking with ethnic leaders. That is a problem in my point of view, but if you are looking in the context of Bosnia and Herzegovina, that is something that is totally normal, because you are losing and wasting time with talking with members of presidency if they don't have a majority on all levels in all assemblies in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So he tried to make some changes in electoral law of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and the results are only in this point of technical things, which is not so less. And it's good that we will have now on our voting lists, candidates list, we will have some special signs like a stamp. So the people who are trying to bring some voting lists before the voting day is starting, that is not anymore possible. And he's actually here in some situations he's an enemy of Bosnia and Herzegovina, but sometimes from all major political parties in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and in some other situations they are calling him to solve some problems in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So it depends what some parties need from Office of High Representative, and how do they see that he should act in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So regarding these changes of ethnic or legitimate representation of candidates who are coming from HDZ, BIH, or SDA, or SNSD, like ruling and ethnic parties in Bosnia, nationalistic parties in Bosnia and Herzegovina, I think that a proposal that candidates who are coming from those cantons or those fields of Bosnia and Herzegovina where they don't have less 3% of their ethnic group, they are not legitimate representatives, or they cannot be elected or delegated to be a part of House of Peoples. It's something that is against all democratic systems that you also as a state knows, or European Union. But when you are looking in our practices, in our orientation, how people are voting with this 3% or without it, we do have Croats who are coming from HDIZ in House of Peoples on federal level. The majority of them are from those parties, and also on state level in the House of Peoples. So my question is not only for Mr. Schmidt, it's not only how he see our electoral law, it's about how do we see. And I'm expecting from social democratic or social liberal parties in Bosnia and Herzegovina, or now this new coalition who is mixed liberal conservative or left, center, right, that I'm asking them also on my Facebook posts what they have done in all these elections that we had since Dayton Agreement to have more Croats or Serbs on their candidates lists, on the positions on candidates list where they can be lately sent it or delegated to enjoy House of Peoples on federal or state level. And then some of them write answer, yes, we have Serbs and Croats in our party, we are multi-ethnical, we are multicultural, etc. I know you do have, but if you see the candidates list, if you see that those candidates are on the positions where they cannot be because of the census between the candidates, which is 20% for moving on the candidates list, which is very high for candidates, they cannot be elected, and when they are not elected in a cantonal assembly, they cannot be a candidate for the House of People on federal and lately on someone who will choose also the candidates for House of People on state level. That show me that majority in political parties are Bosniaks. They can be oriented from left, right, center. I don't care anymore. It's not important for this part of topic. They are without any kind of strategy how to have in House of Peoples, in these ethnic clubs, people who are not from nationalistic parties in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And that is where my frustration is about. It's not, I cannot expect that HDZ or SDA or SNSD will work on these changes. I expect from social democrats, social liberal parties to have these strategies before they offer us a candidates list, because they are the strategy will move us forward. Also with this very complex Dayton Constitution. It's not only to look in the right direction to the Office of High Representative that Schmidt or someone else from European Union should give us a Dayton 2, or how do they see we should be structured, etc. It should come from us. Because when we see also that the Dayton Agreement came from the outside, from abroad, it's not something, it stopped the war, but it's not something that the people in Bosnia and Herzegovina can see positive and can say, okay, we don't have a war, that's a great thing, but it's not the occasions and the life what we live since Dayton Agreement show us. It's structured, but somebody else who didn't maybe some emotional and other strategies how the people who will be on this part in the world will live with this.
Many thanks, Maya. Maybe Samer, would you like to share your opinion on this matter when it comes to the role of Mr. Schmidt and the maybe also role of Croatian politicians in the domestic affairs of Bosnia and Herzegovina?
Yeah, sure. I think there was also a question that goes into that direction, the influence of Croatia and Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, as well as the influence of Erdogan. So I will try to sum everything up in short. Yes, I think the key point that Maya also gave here, which I also agree, is that it shouldn't be the High Representative imposing any solutions if we are already, in 2022. I mean, this should be the role of our politicians. At the same time, we have seen that high reps have went back, to the bond powers, to the this tool that they have to impose laws, to dismiss politicians, and this is, I think, in a democratic way, a step backward. Connected to that is this the crisis, the electoral law crisis, which Maya also touched upon, and I think not only it shouldn't be High Rep's place to impose such kind of decisions, but also I would say, regardless of the fact, as the High Rep said, as Mr. Schmidt said, that he wants to do this with good faith, with goodwill, in order to deblock the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina entity. There should be no attempts to solve anything in Bosnia and Herzegovina by violating human rights. We cannot solve anything by violating human rights. Human rights are the highest, I would say, and should remain the highest value and the highest, goal for us, not just to uphold them, but also to, give back their human rights, the fundamental human rights, to those groups in Bosnia and Herzegovina whose human rights have been violated by the Dayton Peace Agreement. And currently we have 5 verdicts of the European Court of Human Rights, which demand from Bosnia and Herzegovina as a country to amend the constitution in order for those groups to run for office and to be able to vote for whomever they want. So, for example, if someone is a Roma or a Jew in Bosnia and Herzegovina, they don't have the right to become a president of the country. Additionally, if someone is, this is the wildest, the craziest part. If someone identifies as a Bosnian, not as Bosniak, Croat, or Serb, but as a Bosnian citizen, those people who don't want to identify with any of the 3 groups, they, for example, say, I'm a Bosnian and I'm an atheist, let's say, or just say, I don't want to play along that game. They are citizens, they have 0 rights, or they have the rights as the others, as they are literally called in the referred to in the Bosnian constitution. Those are people who cannot run for office for Bosnian presidency. They are the people who, in some cases, depending, they cannot even vote for their candidate in the presidency and in some other offices. Then there are also Serbs in the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. There was another case of Mr. Svetozar Pudarić, who unfortunately died. He passed away while waiting for his verdict to be announced, verdict from the European Court of Human Rights. And he sued Bosnia and Herzegovina because as a Serb from the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, he wasn't able to run for presidency, for example. So the Serbs are also discriminated in the Federation, as well as Bosniaks and Croats in the Republika Srpska, because they cannot run for a member of presidency from Republika Srpska, because from Republika Srpska we have a Serb member, Serb candidate who would represent later, this entity in the presidency. So currently we have 400,000 people who are directly discriminated by some of these cases which I just mentioned. If in any case we would have a new electoral law that would stipulate what Maya elaborated, we would have, I'm sure, in some years, an additional verdict from the European Court of Human Rights, saying that these people who are suffering under this 3% hurdle from certain areas, certain cantons, that they don't have the right to either to run or to vote for whomever they like without choosing their ethnic affiliation. So
Sorry, Samer, we lost connection once again. Hopefully not for good. Samer, are you with us?
I would say we should not look towards the solutions are not long-standing solutions, especially from foreign officials in Bosnia. I think you lost me for a second.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Could you
I stopped talking when I noted that the screen was frozen. What I wanted to say that the foreign officials in the Bosnia and Herzegovina in the past years, we have noticed that they are offering quick fix solutions to very complex problems in the country. Therefore, I would say the solutions should come from the parliaments. And very, very brief on foreign influence. Yes, Mr. Filipovic, I would say recognized the problem and the influence of Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Turkish president, in helping, assisting Bosniak nationalists, mainly those from SDA, in getting votes, getting more attention ahead of election period, and it is mainly SDA benefiting from such visits. At the same time, what we have seen in the media is that from that visit, what Bosnia got was, that Bosnians, the holders Bosnian passports can travel to Turkey, without, they can travel now only with ID cards. At the same time, Erdogan also visited Serbia, where they discussed, for example, about acquiring of drones. So, and this became already a meme, a joke in Bosnia, that when Erdogan comes to Sarajevo, he offers Turkish soap operas and these kinds of, almost meaningless offers to Bosnian citizens. At the same time, traveling to Croatia and Serbia, they are discussing business. At the same time, the other two presidents, the president of Croatia, Milanovic, and the president of Serbia, Vučić, are also playing their own role in meddling in Bosnian internal affairs, or at least as much as Erdogan does. We had Milanovic touring Bosnia. He even was here in Jajce like 2 weeks ago to support, to honor Croat soldiers who have fallen also by liberating the central areas of Bosnia, including the city of Jajce. Again, pledged, spoke against, Komšić spoke against, the civic Bosnia and Herzegovina, speaking in favor of ethnic Bosnia and Herzegovina, even though 10 or 15 years ago, he was the very person who was supporting Komšić and civic-oriented politicians in the country. Vučić is a politician who has been working together with Milorad Dodik for years now in, assisting him, pushing more for more, autonomy in the Republika Srpska. And even though he is not always doing that very openly, but he's doing this either democratically or through his own proxies from his own government. What has become increasingly worrying in the recent years is that Dodik currently now, by the time, has what we could see as a direct link with Moscow. And this is something that should worry all of us. So he doesn't need anymore Mr. Vučić to get to Putin and to Kremlin's, elites. He can circumvent Serbia now, and in the last 2 months, he met twice with Putin, once in St. Petersburg and just earlier this month in Moscow. And I think the influence of Russia, the foreign meddling in Russia, malign influence of Russia, is something to worry about, not just for Bosnia and Herzegovina in the region, but also for the rest of Europe and our Western allies.
Thank you very much, Maria. Exactly as you mentioned at the end of your comment, I think the Russian influence concerns all the countries, or at least of our IDM region. That's completely right. Yeah, we can observe that there is a strong influence of Russian Federation in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and that there are certain political individuals, as you mentioned, who are very much in favor of strengthening ties with Russia and other countries. They are doing so also while also supporting the Russian invasion in Ukraine, for example, also the separatist efforts in the east of Ukraine, but also refusing to join the sanctions of the European Union against Russia and so on. How this element, this Russian influence, actually what role does it play in the elections? Does it actually play any role, and how is it perceived within the society? Are there followers of this strengthening of ties with Russia arising with the activities of Mr. Dodik? What are actually the logic behind this cooperation? Are there any tangible results of, for example, of economic cooperation or something like that with the Russian Federation? And Lilian, this question goes to you as an expert in economics. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. As we already said, we had these two entities. So in one entity, Republic of Srpska, there is influence. However, it is still unclear how this influence is transferred to some economic benefits. The same goes for Erdogan and Milanovic. They do come and visit Bosnia and Herzegovina, but we don't see, for example, some economic benefits of these visits. For example, even though Erdogan is very close to this political party, he invests more in Serbia than actually in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So these are some data. However, I believe that the main connection between Russian and Serbs in Bosnia is basically the religion, the Orthodox religion. And so this is, I would say, maybe what connects these two groups. And based on this, we have this kind of connection. However, it is very influential, and for the perception actually, to say that you have connection with a leader from the Russia, for example. So this will definitely maybe benefit some political parties in this part of the country, saying that we did establish like strong relationship. Dodik visited Russia a few maybe days ago, or maybe 1 week ago, I can't remember. And on his way back, he said that he managed to negotiate prices of gas that are very low. However, then he said at this meeting as well that the federation, who is mostly using this resource, is basically against Russia. So we still don't know, is this going to translate to even better prices? We are still waiting to see what our companies are going to negotiate at the end. However, he said that we are going to get better prices, way better than the European Union has right now. However, we are really small consumer of this resource, so we don't matter that much to Russia, to be honest. It is very small amount, so it's just not a big deal. Russia also has some companies in producing, these some products, but I wouldn't find them the major investor. So in terms of making life better in any entity, I wouldn't say that Russia is making big impact. However, perception is in this way that Russia is very important in this entity, especially. So that's a short answer about your question.
Thank you very much, Lilian. And I can see that Mr. Klaus Prempers raised his hand. So I invite him to take the floor and pose the question or further comment on the issue. Please, Mr. Prempers, the floor is yours. Mr. Prempers, could you hear us? Okay, maybe it was by mistake. Okay, we will see. But in the meantime, there is still one question from audience, and this question is actually addressing you again, Lilian. You mentioned the influence of social media, but as we know, there is also always a problem with media freedom of speech in the Balkans, where some of them get usually censored, especially during the election period. Regarding the situation, how influential and influenced are they in this period? Does the government of Bosnia and Herzegovina elaborate on efforts it takes to ensure the full and unhindered exercise of the freedom of expression of media and the press?
Yeah, I can answer. Of course, we can wait Klaus to make this connection. I mean, I would say that freedom of speech is, of course, not limited. However, it is. I mean, we can all say whatever we want. I think there was one law changed a few years ago in one entity saying that you just cannot talk about anything. However, major problem is actually that we have web portals, we have news portals that are connected to some parties. If you go and visit some political parties, these portals of some political parties, I would say, although they claim they are independent, you can see that they do not write any bad article about that political party, but there are many bad negative articles about other parties. I would also say that our maybe public broadcasting service is under some control of these political parties. So basically, you can see that only some stories are there, etc., etc. And what's interesting for our country is when there is an event, any event, imagine, there are, in most cases, 3 versions of this event, and everyone is taking that part that suits their strategy, ideology, or whatever. So in that sense, I would say that many things are censored. However, as an individual, you can freely share your opinion on the Facebook and, engage in the discussion. I don't see problem with that, especially social media. But the problem is with the media, the traditional media we have so far. And these media are basically not following some rules that they should follow in terms of objectivity. So you can publish any article coming from irrelevant source with unconfirmed source and just make it news. This will do some damage to people, to political parties. However, at the end, there is no responsibility for spreading a false news. So this is a problem, I would say. This freedom of speech is good, but in our case, it's actually being used in a wrong way, I would say.
Many thanks, Lilian. Mr. Prempers is unfortunately sitting in a train and lost connection, but he addressed the question in the chat. The question is as follows: was the absence of decisions in so many years by INSCO a problem? Who would like to address this question? Maybe Samir, would you like to comment on this?
Actually,
I saw Maya also turned
I
off the
wrote
mic.
him and I gave the answer. And actually, my point was that he was here for, let's see, 2 decades, and it's about he didn't use boner power in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and he could use it. And in each media, when INSCO was present or attended the session, he said, "I'm very worried about situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina." So that's a conclusion about what his position and his power and everything. He's worried, and that actually was in Bosnia and Herzegovina like a joke when we are talking about INSCO and Office of High Representative. We said, "I'm worried." And the good thing is actually that in Finnish period of his mandate, he imposed the amendment on the crime law, and now in Bosnia and Herzegovina we have this article when you are speaking about or negative about genocide and saying that in Srebrenica in Bosnia and Herzegovina we didn't have genocide. Now we can go to the court and to the trial and have a process against these persons, which is very important because we have high-level politicians, persons in Bosnia and Herzegovina who, until this amendment, actually are going from media to media, from meeting to meeting, and saying it was not a genocide. So that is a good and positive thing. And to compare with Mr. Schmidt and INSCO is actually, I see Mr. Schmidt more proactive. Maybe it can be also that behind Mr. Schmidt we have now more countries who are with some clearly agenda to Bosnia and Herzegovina, but we still have Peace Implementation Council, and those countries are not alone. Everything can and will be voted in this council. So that was my point, and I think Mr. Klaus will be okay with this answer.
I hope so too. I would like, because the time is really running out, I would like to come back to the topic we mentioned at the very beginning of our today's discussion, and that was this frustration regarding the European Union or the European community. How is the European Union perceived in the country? We all know that the countries of the Western Balkans are waiting in this limbo, so to say, or waiting to be included in European political family for decades already. Is there still interest to join the EU? And what about maybe also the NATO membership? Is the geopolitical place of Bosnia and Herzegovina a topic during this year's elections? Maybe Samer, would you like to address this question?
Yeah, this is actually a very good question in terms of EU's role and EU's credibility, not just in Bosnia but in the region as well. So when it comes to the EU, there is overwhelming majority among the people of Bosnia and Herzegovina who do want to join the EU. Vast majority of people are also, when it comes to immigration, they are also leaving Bosnia, to Germany, to Austria. I mean, no one is, like a small fringe majority, which is 0 point something%, are going and emigrating to Russia, or to Turkey. We have like a certain number of students who are studying in Turkey, couple of them in Russia, because I even did the research on this. We are focusing our attention and our immigration perspectives more towards West, towards the EU, and towards, at the end of the day, NATO members. When it comes to the EU, I would say there we have maybe a bit of a less overlap when it comes to, compared to the EU sentiment. It is especially in Republika Srpska, where politicians on daily basis are, beating the drums of anti-NATO drums, peddling this, rhetoric that the Serbs have been, victims of NATO bombing, etc., without even mentioning why did the NATO bomb Serb positions, and what was the reason and what was the context behind. The EU itself has, in the last couple of years, has lost credibility to such a level that the EU has always kind of demanded from the countries in the region to deliver, and countries such as Kosovo or North Macedonia or Albania have, to a large extent, delivered. In Kosovo, they asked the government to deliver when it comes to filling out some benchmarks in order for the Kosovar citizens to travel to the EU visa-free, which Kosovo did deliver. However, Kosovars, even 5 or 6 years after they were asked to do so, cannot travel to the EU without visas. So the citizens of Kosovo are the only citizens west of Russia, with the exception of Belarus, that cannot travel to the EU without visas. And that's a very time-consuming, costly process, that's undemocratic, that's also violating one of the fundamental human rights, which is the freedom of movement, because we do have a country in the heart of Europe whose citizens, need to go through like, 2-3 months long processes, put a half of an average salary in Kosovo just to get an opportunity to travel to visit their cousins, relatives or wherever in Schengen area. And the same thing goes for North Macedonia, for example, country that's changed its name, a country that changed its constitution in order to get closer to the EU. And an average Bosnian politician, an average nationalist, is thinking like this: well, look, if the EU is demanding something from a neighboring country in the region, asking them to deliver without delivering their own promise that they would, do something in return, why would we deliver? Why would we do anything? Because, and this is how it seems to ordinary Bosnian voters, that Bosnian politicians, as if we are witnessing a theater play in which Bosnian politicians are pretending they want to join the EU, and the EU officials are pretending they want us in the EU, and this kind of a play is something that makes ordinary people, so weakened, tired, and then they say, okay, look, if the Bosnia will not join the EU, I will join the EU as an individual, and that's why people are leaving. Last year only, according to statistics, there was around 150,000 of people who left the country, depending from source to source. But these are huge numbers for a country which is only 3.5 million. And I think those are some of the key aspects that the EU should worry about next time when coming closer, to negotiate the EU accession of not just of Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also of the region of the Western Balkan Six.
Thank you very much, Samer. And we still have two unaddressed questions from the audience, which goes again in the direction of Republika Srpska and Mr. Dodik. Was actually anybody already brought to the court? For example, Mr. Dodik? That's the first question. And then we have a second question. When we look at the Republika Srpska as an entity within Bosnia and Herzegovina, if there is a change in power in Banja Luka in the form of some new faces like Jelena Trivic or Draško Stanivukovic, would these new representatives of the Serbian people in Bosnia and Herzegovina distance themselves from these separatist statements that we can constantly hear from Mr. Dodik and start the path of agreement and cooperation with Sarajevo? Who would like to refer to this question regarding make accountable Mr. Dodik and the others? Maya, please.
Yeah, that is now in this point of view, the new generation of politicians in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Of course, Stanivukovic and Trivic are new generations, and when we compare with Dodik in this kind, would they, on this position on which is Mr. Dodik now, would they also say that Bosnia and Herzegovina as a state is not possible, the Republika Srpska should be divided and split it to Republic Serbia, etc. With 100%, I cannot say they are different. Those of them, also Stanivukovic and Trivic, are totally different from Mr. Dodik. And why I cannot say it, because you have Jelena Trivic, which hero is actually a person who was during in the past in Chetniks, in this group of Chetnik people in ex-Yugoslavia, and now he's a hero. He's somebody for her who is actually the person idol for a new generation of youth in Republika Srpska, etc. For me, not only because I'm living in another part of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. For me, as her generation, this is unacceptable. I would expect that. And I cannot say that Republika Srpska is not a part of Bosnia and Herzegovina, is something that we should be negative oriented to, etc. I would also expect from Jelena and Stanivukovic that they have some new narrative which is pro-EU, which is what are the topics which should be in dialogue with all other ethnic groups and people in Bosnia and Herzegovina discussed, and what are the best solutions for all of us, not to talk about Chetniks, about her heroes and history, which is actually by our educational system. Each part of Bosnia and Herzegovina has its own history of Bosnia and Herzegovina and of the war. So I know that the people from the EU are expecting and are actually also supporting the new politicians. In some media, we can read now that also EU is some influenced people from the EU are financial supporters of Jelena Trivic's campaign. She's running now for the president of Republika Srpska for this seat, and I do believe that they will not have other narrative that Dodik has. Now, because all of this context that we and also Samir elaborated, because of the educational system, because of the people who are living here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, they want to hear this. They want to have leaders who are talking about the past, about this ethno-nationalistic topics and emotions, not about how to be progressive and how to have a better life. In comparing with that is why I'm frustrating because of the EU, and I will a little bit disagree with Lilian's opinion that we don't have, that is only perception that we don't have influence of Russian Federation here. We do have the Russian ambassador here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, who had a statement in one very famous TV show in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and he said when Bosnia and Herzegovina decides to enjoy NATO, Russia will react, and reaction can be like in Ukraine. That is that cannot be saying by someone who don't have enough influence.
I meant in terms of economic benefits, not in
yes,
these.
yes, economically also they are involved, and they have their influences through gas, through all companies here, not only in Republika Srpska, but also through other channels here in Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And we have also, and I think that is something that we didn't spoke enough about that, because maybe because in Croatia, Republika Croatia is a member state of EU. The president of Republika Croatia is coming from Social Democratic Party. That is maybe also a good comparison where we are talking how the people change their narrative, their orientation, ideology, and where is actually the Social Democratic ideology today in Western Balkans, also in the European Union. And he is someone also who is, I don't know if the European media had this statement written in English or in German, that he said that until Bosnia and Herzegovina and Mr. Schmidt, until we don't adopt new electoral law in Bosnia and Herzegovina, he as a state member will stop, I'm paraphrasing, will stop also the enjoying process of Finland and Sweden to NATO. And that was okay for the EU. We in Bosnia and Herzegovina didn't hear any kind of statement from the ruling states, member states in the EU to said, now you cannot speak like this, you are a member state of the EU, and you cannot decide about Bosnia and Herzegovina or make some pressure about to Bosnia and Herzegovina regarding electoral law. And with new researchers in Bosnia and Herzegovina show us that at least 20% of youth people in Western Balkans, especially also in Bosnia and Herzegovina, are only 20% are pro-EU. And that's why I'm frustrating, and that's why I'm actually hoping that EU will have a new agenda for Bosnia and Herzegovina, because Samir said, yes, our immigration, we are oriented to the EU member states, but those people are immigrants, they are going out. The people who are staying, who will vote, who will be on decision-making positions in the next maybe elections in 4 years of general elections. Those people maybe will say, I don't care anymore about the EU process. Maybe the better offer we do have from Russian sides, I don't believe that Turkey will give us some good offer. More better offer will they give to Mr. Vučić than to us, Samir elaborated. So that is where we are now. Who will have more voters and will we go to east or to west? That is a question, and that is a new generation, and that is why we don't have enough arguments to give the youth people to say, yes, it is good, we should go, and that is my opinion, we should go to the European Union, but as Samir mentioned, when they see Kosovo, when they see North Macedonia, now they changed the name, they have done everything, and now they are still in the process. When they see all other neighbor countries, it's very, very little and enough arguments for EU.
Thank you very much, Maya. As you can see, we already ran out of time for our today's discussion, but I would still like to kindly ask someone of you to address the question for Mr. Prempers. Was anybody already brought to court? For example, Mr. Dodik. Summer, would you address this question? Would you answer, please?
I mean, there are, I think, several, lawsuits going against Dodik, against some other politicians. The problem of going to Bosnian court is not to go to court; it's to get processed at the court. Because the judiciary and the court are highly corrupted, highly connected with nationalist parties. So once someone gets there, it's very easy, for those convicted people in power to ensure that their case never gets processed. Or if they don't have that particular branch of the judiciary in power, the judges or the prosecutors, they have their very good friends in other political parties, and behind the curtain they are cooperating very well. At the same time, just this week, United States State Department blacklisted one of the most prominent state prosecutors in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Ms. Dijana Kajmaković, who has been dealing with cases of high corruption in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and she has been later proven to be, a co-conspirator with those with the criminals, who have been indicted or who have been, known for dealing either with, drugs, corruption, etc. She has been blacklisted. At the same time, just yesterday, the prosecutor's office said that they cannot remove her from office because they don't have the information that the US do have, and that there is no legal basis, legal ground based on which they can remove Ms. Kajmaković from office. So what is that? What is the message that is being sent to, Bosnian people? Whoever commits crime, whoever engages in high corruption, whoever engages in nepotism, in crime and politics, will not get sanctioned, even though these very prosecutors, judges have been blacklisted, labeled as a flagrant example of high corruption in judiciary institutions. And even if Dodik would get on to court, the expectations among the ordinary people that the court will do anything, in order to put those people either to jail or just to sentence them with even a symbolic verdict. There is no expectations because the credibility of the court is in rambles. And this is the sole example why judiciary and court, as an additional pillar of Bosnian society, has been crumbling for so long. And currently we do have not only politicians engaging in corruption, but also those who should be responsible for sentencing them, the judges and the prosecutors.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Samer. And I would like to kind of conclude our today's discussion with one question, kind of traditional question, because I'm asking always this question to our distinguished guests. And the question is, what election results do you expect? And what are the most probable post-election scenarios? Can we expect maybe some long negotiations, as it was the case 4 years ago, when I believe the government was approved 1 year after the elections? So I would like to ask you to answer this question in a very brief way, since we already ran out of time 10 minutes ago. Thank you. If Maya, would you like to start, maybe?
Yeah, I do expect, actually, this is my hope, that the Bosnian candidates from this 11 oppositional party from SDP, actually, Denis Bećireć will win. And from the Croats, I think that Mr. Komšić will get his mandate, second mandate in this and fourth in final. And it's not about, I think the Croats from HDZ actually want to have Mr. Komšić on this position, and they don't invest enough in their campaign because they will be also their topic in these 4 years that they don't have. They are here not constituent people, and they don't have a legitimate representative in the presidency, etc. And from Republika Srpska, I think that Ms. Cvijanović, and for the first time we will have a woman in the presidency of BiH, and that will be also another kind of problem, because I think the nationalistic parties on all other levels, that means also on federal level and the state level of BiH, will have a power and will be in the ruling position. And when you compare now, when you have a ruling position in Parliamentary Assembly of BiH, for example, or on federal level, and you don't have your presidency a member for Bosniaks or Croats, that means a new blockades here in Bosnia and Herzegovina. On cantonal level will be easier to get a government, because you don't have some parties which are in this role, like on federal or state level. And in the end, I hope that we as voters for next general elections will actually follow all these processes and all this period of 4 years, and will be more responsible as a citizens, and not vote for parties and candidates who will give us a job, privileges, etc., but who will actually work for better life in Bosnia and Herzegovina, not for our generation, because we are done here, for the next generation. And that is why I'm thinking it's not only a fault of politicians, it's about ourselves also.
Thank you very much, Maya. Lilian, what is your take on this? What are your predictions?
I would say it's really almost impossible to predict the exact results, but there's always this hope, I would say, that we will see some change. I believe that at many levels, because we have many levels here, we can expect some coalitions between different parties. So this would happen. However, I'm not so sure about the Serbian member of presidency, sorry, because there is slight more interest in Jelena right now, but our political parties, they have a stable voters, you know, they are going to vote regardless of what you are doing here. So we will see. But there is a slight advantage of Jelena over, other candidates in terms of Serbian. In Bosnian, I also not so sure, to be honest. I know this is not the answer you expected, but because Izetbegović and Bećirević, they all have strong voters right now, because we have 11 parties supporting one candidate. This is quite unique in our history, to be honest. But still, we have a third candidate who could take some voters, and then we'll see what will happen. However, I do see some optimism at lower levels, because cantonal levels will probably have governments and such. And probably at the federal level, we will still, unless Schmidt intervenes, we will still see these kind of problems we saw in the last 4 years.
Thank you very much, Lilian, also for your take on this. And last but not least, please summer, and please try to be as brief as possible. Thank you.
Yes, I don't expect much, to be honest. And what I do expect is, based on what is offered, I cannot expect much, because there is not so much new that we have at the table to choose from. So, from my perspective, when I opened the ballot, and I'm currently doing my PhD abroad in Germany, so I already voted. I registered to vote from abroad, and I voted, and I chose those people for whom I know who have served as activists in their local communities. because I know for those people who have been really working, hard on the ground, whose change has been tangible, so to speak, and those were usually those activist people who are also fighting for civic Bosnia and Herzegovina. So what I do hope and expect actually in the next 4 years is that we have relatively rather similar, discussions, struggles between the ethnic principle that currently exists and the civic Bosnia and Herzegovina, which I would like to live in, where I would like to raise my children in. And I don't think we are asking anything special, anything that exists. We're just asking anything like something that already exists in the EU, in Croatia, in Austria, in Germany, ethnic principle where everyone could run, anyone could vote for anyone. And I think this is the future that my country does, the future that my country deserves, that people in Bosnia deserve. But as both Maya and Lena said, it is not just up to politicians, it is mainly up to voters to vote for such powers that are able to, transcend a Bosnian political, norm from what it currently is now into what we would like it to be in the upcoming years. And we will not be able to achieve that in 4 years. So, I mean, the battle will continue, I think, for the years to come.
Thank you very much. I wish we could conclude on more positive note, but yes, probably this bottom-up approach is not a bad idea. Where to vote the people who has really some tangible results on the ground, and who one would think or assume that they will be active and continue this approach also at the higher levels of the public administration. So we arrived to the end of our today's discussion. I would like to thank all of our experts today for the excellent analysis of the pre-election situation in Bosnia and Herzegovina and the most valuable insights into the election campaigns and both the regional, European, but also local politics. Many thanks also to our audience for following us today and its involvement in the discussion. With the posing of the questions. And last but not least, many thanks to our two cooperation partners, the Political Academy and the Karl-Renner-Institut for organizing this wonderful event. As always, the recording of our today's discussion will be available soon on our IDM YouTube channel. If you enjoyed our discussion and would like to follow our activities, check regularly our IDM webpage. You can also subscribe to our IDM social media channels or even become an IDM member. Thank you very much. See you actually next week on Thursday, the 6th of October at the same time at 10 a.m. when we take a look on already 4th parliamentary elections in Bulgaria during the last 2 years. So definitely exciting discussion is waiting for us next week. I'm very much looking forward to that, and I do hope that you will join us next Thursday as well. Until then, I wish all of you all the best, and please take care.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All the best.
All the best.
See you. Bye.